Beloved, hear me now. You didn't cry for nothing. You didn't ache for nothing. You didn't bleed in secret for nothing. Every tear you wiped away in the dark, every prayer you whispered when your voice was shaking, every moment you wondered, God, do you see me? He saw it all. He counted it. He kept the record, because what looked like loss was actually planting. What felt like breaking was really birthing. And what you thought drained you was preparing you for a blessing you never saw coming. I came to tell somebody today, the same eyes that cried in pain are about to cry in praise. The same hands that trembled in despair are about to lift in thanksgiving. Your tears were not wasted, they were invested. And heaven is about to pay you back with interest. There are moments in life when tears become a language all their own, when words fail and the soul can only speak through sorrow. You may not have announced your pain to anyone. You may have learned how to smile in public while breaking in private. But hear this truth and let it settle deep in your spirit. God records every tear you cry. Not one drop has fallen unnoticed. Not one moment of grief escaped his attention. Heaven has a ledger, and your tears are written in it. Scripture tells us that God keeps our tears in his bottle. That means your pain was not ignored, minimized, or dismissed. While people may have told you to be strong or get over it, God did not rush you through your suffering. He stood with you in it. He watched you cry yourself to sleep. He saw the nights you replayed the same questions over and over, wondering how things went so wrong. And in those moments when you felt abandoned, he was closer than you realized. Some tears came from betrayal. You trusted, and trust was broken. You loved, and love did not love you back the same way. You gave your best, and still it wasn't enough. Others cried because of lost dreams that died, doors that closed, people walked away, or loved ones taken too soon. There were tears you cried in frustration because you did everything you knew to do and still ended up hurting. And there were tears of confusion when you couldn't understand why obedience seemed to lead to hardship instead of reward. But God is not like man. Man forgets quickly. Man moves on while you're still bleeding. Man hears your story once and then grows tired of it, but God listens again and again. He does not grow weary of your cries. He does not roll his eyes at your emotions. He does not shame you for feeling deeply. The same God who created the oceans is intimate enough to notice a single tear sliding down your face. When you cried and said nothing, God heard everything. When you tried to pray but only tears came out, heaven still understood. Tears are prayers when words are not enough. They are evidence that your heart was still alive, still hoping, still believing even when it was hurting. And God honors that kind of faith, the faith that keeps showing up even while it's wounded. You may have thought your tears were a sign of weakness, but in God's economy, they are a sign of endurance. You kept loving after being hurt. You kept believing after being disappointed. You kept standing when it would have been easier to walk away. Every tear marks a moment when you refused to quit, even though quitting would have made sense. And God never overlooks perseverance wrapped in pain. There were times you cried because you felt forgotten. You looked around and saw others moving ahead while you felt stuck in the same place. You watched prayers answered for them while yours seemed delayed. And you wondered if God had skipped over your name. But the delay did not mean denial. It meant God was working behind the scenes in ways you could not see yet. Your tears watered the ground where your next miracle was growing. God records every tear because tears carry testimony. They tell the story of what you survived. They testify that you went through the fire and didn't lose your faith. They say, I was crushed, but I still believed God could heal me. And when the blessing comes, it will not just bless you. It will validate your endurance. It will make sense of the struggle. It will explain the silence. It will answer the questions you never got to ask. There are blessings that only come through brokenness. There are levels of compassion, authority, and spiritual depth that cannot be gained without suffering. If God had stopped the tears too early, you would have missed the growth that came with them. You would have missed the strength that was forming in you while you cried. You would have missed the intimacy with God that only develops in the valley. One day, you will look back and realize that those tears were shaping you, softening you, preparing you. They were teaching you how to trust God beyond understanding. They were teaching you how to worship even when the song was hard to sing. They were teaching you how to lean on God instead of leaning on people who could not carry the weight of your pain. And here is the good news. God does not collect tears without intention. He does not store pain without purpose. There is a divine exchange coming. What you released in tears, God will return in joy. What you sowed in sorrow, you will reap in gladness. The same face that was stained with tears will be lifted with praise. The same heart that ached will overflow with gratitude. So if you are crying now, don't rush yourself out of it. Let the tears fall. God is close. He is watching, He is recording, and when the time is right, He will respond in a way that proves none of it was wasted. Every tear you cried is about to return, not as pain, not as loss, but as a blessing you never expected. There is a pattern in the kingdom of God that we often resist but cannot escape. Pain often precedes divine promotion. Before God lifts you, He stretches you. Before He elevates you, He exposes what is inside you. And before He places you on a higher level, He allows you to walk through a lower valley. We shout for the crown, but we forget about the cross. We celebrate the palace, but we overlook the pit that came first. Promotion in God is not just about position, it is about preparation. If God promoted you without processing you, the blessing would crush you instead of complete you. That is why the road upward often feels downward at first. You wondered why things got harder right when you started praying more seriously. You questioned why resistance increased when you decided to obey God fully. But the struggle was not a sign that you were off track. It was confirmation that God was developing you for what is next. Pain has a way of stripping away what cannot go with you into your next season. Pride cannot survive pain. Self-sufficiency breaks down in pain. False confidence is exposed in pain. God uses discomfort to refine your character so your calling does not destroy you. If He allowed you to rise too quickly, the weight of success would reveal cracks you never healed. So He lets the pressure come first, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Think about how many times you felt pushed back instead of pulled forward. You were overlooked when you were qualified. You were ignored when you were faithful. You were tested when you expected to be celebrated. But what you didn't realize was that God was teaching you how to lead without applause, how to serve without recognition, how to trust Him without evidence. These are the lessons that make promotion sustainable instead of seasonal. Pain also teaches discernment. After being hurt, you stop giving access to people who only came to use you. After being disappointed, you stop placing your identity in approval. After being broken, you learn how to depend on God instead of outcomes. Promotion without discernment attracts destruction. So God allows pain to sharpen your wisdom before He expands your influence. There are doors God will not open until you are strong enough to walk through them without losing yourself. There are blessings He will not release until your heart is anchored in Him and not in the gift. Pain anchors you. It roots you, humbles you. It teaches you how to pray with sincerity instead of performance. And when promotion comes, it comes with stability, not arrogance. You may have felt like your pain disqualified you, but in God's hands, it actually qualified you. The scars you carry are proof that you survived what should have destroyed you. They are evidence that you endured the fire and came out refined. God does not promote people who have never been tested, because untested strength collapses under pressure. What you went through gave you endurance, compassion, and authority that you could not gain any other way. Pain also aligns you with purpose. It redirects you when comfort would have kept you stuck. You would have stayed in places that were familiar but not fruitful if God had not allowed discomfort to push you out. Sometimes pain is God's way of saying, you can't stay here anymore. It hurts because you are growing beyond where you used to fit. The pressure is proof that expansion is happening. Even Jesus endured suffering before glory. The cross came before the resurrection. The rejection came before the revival. If pain preceded promotion for Him, it will not bypass you. But the same God who allowed the pain is the God who guarantees the promotion. The suffering has an expiration date. The struggle has a limit. The season of pressing is making room for the season of lifting. You may not feel promoted while you're hurting, but heaven already sees you differently. While you feel buried, God sees you planted. While you feel crushed, God sees oil being released. While you feel broken, God sees transformation taking place. Pain is temporary, but the promotion it produces is lasting. One day you will stand in a place you once prayed for, and you will realize that the pain was not pointless. It was necessary. It trained your hands for battle. It strengthened your knees for the climb. It taught you how to worship without conditions. And when God lifts you, you will know it was not luck, not favoritism, not coincidence. It was divine timing shaped by endurance. So don't despise the pain. Don't curse the pressure. Don't quit in the valley. You are closer to promotion than you think. What hurts now is making room for what will bless you later. And when God finally elevates you, you will not just rise, you will rise ready. There are seasons when waiting feels heavier than failure. You can handle a no better than silence. You can recover from rejection faster than uncertainty. And yet, many of us find ourselves in that uncomfortable space where prayers have been lifted, faith has been exercised, obedience has been demonstrated, and still nothing seems to move. That is where the misunderstanding begins, because we assume that delay means denial. But in the economy of God, delay is often preparation in disguise. God is never late, but he is rarely early. His timing does not rush to ease our anxiety, and it does not operate on our deadlines. What feels slow to you is often strategic to him. You are measuring time by your pain. God is measuring readiness by your purpose. If he answered everything immediately, you might receive the blessing before you were strong enough to sustain it. So he waits not because he is unwilling, but because he is wise. Delay works on you in ways instant answers never could. While you are waiting, God is developing patience where impulsiveness once lived. He is building endurance where you used to give up quickly. He is deepening your prayer life beyond asking into trusting. If God gave you everything the moment you ask, you might worship the gift instead of the giver. Delay keeps your heart aligned with heaven. There are things God must remove before he can release what you are praying for. Some relationships cannot go with you into your next season. Some habits must be broken. Some mindsets must be healed. If God moved too fast, you would carry old baggage into new blessings and sabotage what he gave you. So he delays not to frustrate you, but to free you. While you are waiting, heaven is working. Doors are being positioned. People are being aligned. Circumstances are being rearranged. Battles you never saw are being fought on your behalf. Just because you don't see movement does not mean nothing is happening. Roots grow underground long before anything breaks the surface. If you dig up a seed every day to check its progress, you will interrupt the process. Trust requires patience. Delay also teaches discernment. It helps you recognize the difference between what you want and what you truly need. Some things you prayed for 5 years ago would have destroyed you if God had said yes. You can see it clearly now, but back then you would have sworn it was the answer. Delay protected you from yourself. It saved you from settling for less than God's best. There are blessings that require maturity. Influence requires wisdom. Increase requires discipline. Visibility requires character. If God promoted you before your character caught up with your calling, the spotlight would expose flaws you never addressed. Delay gives you time to grow quietly so you don't fall publicly. God would rather take time than repair damage. Waiting also reveals where your trust truly is. When answers come quickly, it's easy to praise God. But when the clock keeps ticking and nothing changes, faith is tested. Will you still worship when there is no evidence? Will you still obey when there is no reward yet? Delay separates convenience faith from covenant faith. It proves whether you trust God for who he is or only for what he gives. Many people quit in delay because they misinterpret it. They stop praying because they assume God said no. They lower their expectations because waiting feels like rejection. But often God is saying, not yet. And not yet does not cancel the promise. It confirms it needs time. Some prayers require alignment, not just desire. Delay also strengthens your testimony. When the blessing finally arrives, There will be no confusion about where it came from. You will know it wasn't luck, manipulation, or shortcuts. It was God. The longer the wait, the clearer the praise. The delay will give context to the miracle. People will see what you survived while you waited, and they will know it had to be divine. Think about how many times God came through at the last possible moment, just when hope was almost gone, just when options ran out, just when you were ready to give up. That was not coincidence. That was precision. God specializes in showing up when only He can get the glory. Delay positions Him as the answer, not your effort. You are not forgotten in the waiting. You are not overlooked in the delay. You are being shaped. You are being strengthened. You are being prepared for something that requires more than enthusiasm. It requires endurance. What God is building in you now will support what He is about to release to you later. One day you will thank God for the delays you once resented. You will see that the waiting saved you, matured you, and aligned you. You will realize that if God had moved faster, you would not have been ready. And when the blessing comes, it will come at the right time, in the right way, with the right foundation. So don't rush God. Don't give up in the middle. Don't interpret silence as rejection. Delay is not denial. It is preparation. And what God is preparing you for will be worth every moment you had to wait. There is a kind of suffering that happens in silence, far away from applause, affirmation, or understanding. It is the pain you carry while still showing up, the struggle you endure while still being faithful. The battles you fight when no one knows you're in a war. Hidden suffering is one of the most misunderstood seasons in life, because when you don't look broken on the outside, people assume you are fine on the inside. But God sees what others miss, and He specializes in turning hidden suffering into unexpected favor. You suffered quietly because you didn't want to burden anyone. You learned how to function with a fractured heart. You mastered the art of smiling while your soul was tired. But just because your pain was private does not mean it was powerless. God was watching the integrity of your endurance. He was paying attention to how you treated people who never knew what you were carrying. He saw you remain kind when you had every reason to be bitter, and heaven took note. Hidden suffering develops depth. Public pain gets sympathy, but private pain builds character. When no one is watching, your true faith is revealed. Anyone can praise God when life is good, but it takes real trust to worship while hurting quietly. That kind of faith attracts favor because it proves you are not serving God for attention. You are serving Him from conviction. God often hides His strongest work in unseen places. Roots grow underground before trees rise above ground. A baby develops in the womb before it is revealed to the world. Likewise, God uses hidden suffering to form strength, wisdom, and humility that cannot be developed on a stage. If He exposed the process too early, others would interfere, criticize, or contaminate what He is building in you. So He allows the work to remain unseen until it is ready. There are blessings that will only come to those who endured without applause. God trusts people who can suffer in secret and still honor Him publicly. Hidden suffering proves that your obedience is not dependent on recognition. You didn't stay faithful because people were watching. You stayed faithful because God was. And that kind of loyalty qualifies you for unexpected favor. Unexpected favor often comes suddenly, without explanation to those around you. People will say you are lucky, but they didn't see the nights you cried. They didn't see the prayers you whispered under your breath just to make it through the day. They didn't see the sacrifices you made when no one was clapping. What looked sudden to them was slow and painful for you. Favor didn't skip you. It found you prepared. Hidden suffering also refines your motives. It teaches you to seek God for who He is, not for what He gives. When no one is rewarding you, no one is praising you, and no one is noticing you, you learn to draw strength directly from God. That intimacy becomes a foundation that success cannot shake. When favor comes, you won't lose yourself in it because your identity was formed in obscurity. There is a protection in hidden suffering. God shields you from exposure before you are ready to handle it. He keeps you away from platforms that would have amplified your pain instead of healing it. While you thought you were being overlooked, God was actually preserving you. He was making sure that when you rise whole, not broken, not bitter, not desperate for validation. Hidden suffering gives you compassion. It softens your heart toward others who are struggling silently. You notice pain others overlook because you've lived there. That empathy becomes part of your calling. God uses people who know how to handle broken hearts gently. Favor flows toward those who can steward influence with kindness. One of the greatest dangers of success is arrogance, and hidden suffering cures it. You will never forget where God found you. You will never look down on others because you remember what it felt like to be invisible. Your suffering trained you to remain humble even when doors open. That humility attracts even more favor. Because God resists pride but pours grace on the humble. You may have questioned why God allowed you to suffer without recognition. You may have wondered why others were celebrated while you were struggling. But understand this. God was not ignoring you. He was investing in you. He was building something so strong, so deep, that it could not be rushed or exposed too early. The suffering was shaping your capacity to carry favor without losing your soul. When unexpected favor arrives, it will not just change your circumstances. It will vindicate your faith. It will prove that God saw every quiet tear, every silent prayer, every unrecognized sacrifice. The same people who never knew your struggle will witness your elevation. And when they ask how it happened, you will know the truth. Hidden suffering produced visible favor. So don't despise the season where no one claps. Don't curse the days when your pain feels unnoticed. God is doing His best work in secret. And what He is preparing in private will be revealed in public at the right time. Your suffering was not wasted. It was positioning you for favor you never expected. There is a spiritual law that cannot be broken. Whatever is planted will eventually produce a harvest. And tears, when planted in faith, are never empty. They are seeds. When you cried and still trusted God, you were sowing something into the soil of heaven. When you prayed through heartbreak instead of walking away, you were planting faith in the middle of pain. And though it looked like loss at the time, God was already preparing the return. Many people see tears as evidence of defeat, but God sees them as proof of belief. You cried because you cared. You cried because you hoped. You cried because you believed God could still do something, even when everything around you suggested otherwise. If you had no faith, you would not have cried. You would have quit. Tears planted in faith are an act of surrender. A declaration that says, God, I don't understand this, but I trust you with it. The problem is that harvest never comes immediately after planting. There is always a season between sowing and reaping. And during that season, it looks like nothing is happening. The soil is quiet, the ground looks unchanged, and that's where doubt tries to speak. You start asking yourself if your prayers mattered, if your tears meant anything, if God was really listening. But just because the soil is silent does not mean the seed is dead. Growth is happening underground before it ever shows above ground. You cried in moments when no one else knew what you were carrying. You wiped your face and kept moving. You showed up even when your heart was heavy, and every tear that fell was absorbed by the soil of promise. God does not waste pain that is given to Him. He converts it. He transforms it. He uses it as fertilizer for what is coming next. The blessing that comes from tearful faith is often unexpected because it doesn't return in the same form. You cried over one thing, but God answers with something greater. You prayed for restoration, and He gives you renewal. You asked for what was lost, and He brings something new. God rarely replaces exactly what you lost. He exceeds it. That is why the blessing surprises you. You were expecting relief, but God brings transformation. There are tears you cried asking God to fix a situation, but instead He fixed you. He strengthened you. He deepened your wisdom. He expanded your capacity. And one day you will realize that the blessing was not just what God did for you, but who you became because you trusted Him through tears. That inner growth will outlast any external reward. Faithful tears also align timing. You were not just sowing for a blessing, you were sowing for the right season. If God had answered immediately, you might have missed the fullness of what He intended. Some blessings require time to mature, just like seeds. They need the right conditions, the right preparation, and the right moment. Tears keep you connected to God long enough for that timing to align. When the harvest comes, it often comes suddenly. After a long season of crying, praying, and waiting, God moves in a way you did not predict. Doors open you did not knock on. Favor finds you without explanation. Opportunities appear without effort. And you realize that the blessing was already growing while you thought nothing was happening. The tears were working even when you were tired. Tears planted in faith also change how you receive the blessing. You won't take it lightly. You won't waste it. You won't brag about it. You will steward it with gratitude because you remember what it cost you to get there. You know the nights you cried. You know the days you almost gave up, and that memory will keep you humble, thankful, and generous. There is also multiplication in tearful faith. The harvest is often bigger than the seed. You cried over one area of your life, but God blesses multiple areas. You sowed tears in private, but the blessing impacts others. Your testimony becomes encouragement. Your story becomes healing for someone else. What you went through will help someone else survive what they are facing. God promises that those who sow in tears will reap in joy. That joy is not shallow happiness. It is deep satisfaction. It is peace that comes from knowing God was faithful. It is joy that no circumstance can steal because it was birthed out of pain. The depth of your joy will match the depth of your tears. If you are still crying, don't stop believing. Keep planning, keep trusting, keep praying. The soil is working. Heaven has not forgotten you. Every tear has been counted, and every tear has purpose. The blessing is not canceled. It is growing. One day, you will look at your life and see the harvest clearly. You will recognize that what once broke your heart became the foundation of your breakthrough. And you will say with confidence, my tears were not wasted. They were planted in faith and they returned as blessings far greater than I ever expected. Beloved, as I come to a close, I want you to hear this with your whole heart. Your story is not ending in tears. It is turning. Everything you endured was leading somewhere. Every tear you cried, every delay you survived, every silent battle you fought was shaping a future that is bigger than your pain. What felt like loss was actually preparation. What felt like rejection was protection. What felt like waiting was God working. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are right on time for a divine turnaround. God has been collecting what you released in faith, and He is faithful to return it in blessing. The tears that watered your prayers are about to water your praise. The nights you cried are about to become testimonies you will tell. Don't be ashamed of what you went through. Don't regret the tears. They didn't weaken you, they refined you. They didn't break you, they built you. You came through the fire with wisdom, compassion, and strength that cannot be taught any other way. And now, you are ready for what God has been preparing behind the scenes. I declare that joy is replacing sorrow, clarity is replacing confusion, and favor is overtaking frustration. What you thought ended you is about to elevate you. What tried to drain you is about to reward you. And what you never expected is about to arrive right on time. So lift your head, dry your eyes, strengthen your faith. The same God who saw your tears is about to show you His faithfulness. Your season of crying is ending, and your season of blessing is beginning. And when it happens, you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt, every tear you cried came back as a blessing you never expected.